Hello, welcome to week 2 of The Living Earth. Last week, you were introduced to this water plant called the water hyacinth. It's a non-native species that is living in the delta. Over time, this species is changing the ecosystem of the delta. This week, we are going to start looking at how we can analyze if an ecosystem is changing over time, so that we can see how the water hyacinth is changing the delta over time. So let's get started. Please take out the introduction video activity that is in your assignment. We will be filling this out as you watch this video. This is a picture of a grassland taken at Round Valley Regional Park, which is off of Marsh Creek Road. Pretend that you're a naturalist and you're walking through this area. The question is, do you think that this meadow has changed over time? Do you think this meadow looked exactly the same 1,000 years ago, or 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, or even 10 years ago? Please go ahead and record your answer where it says, do you think this grassland has always looked this way? Please stop this recording as you record your answer, and then start it again when you are ready to continue. Now we're going to list 3 factors that could have changed this grassland over time, and we're going to talk about where you could find evidence to support this claim. One factor that could have affected this area over time would have been fire. There have been fires in California in the last several months, and there have been fires in the Round Valley area in the last 50 years. Where could we look for evidence for that? We could actually look by walking around. Possibly there'd be burn marks on this tree or burn marks on the shrub, or we could even do some soil samples, and the soil samples might turn up an area of high carbon in the area from when the fire had happened. So we could possibly find out if there's ecosystem change from fire by, again, looking around or looking at old records or taking soil samples. Another factor that may have affected this area is plants, invasive plants or non-native plants. Now, non-native plants are not always invasive. Invasive plants are ones that are reproducing faster than the native plants, and they are slowly pushing the native plants out and making the biodiversity of an area from being diverse, many different plants, to being one of a monoculture where there is only 1 or 2 plants. So that would be easy enough to do. You could count the plants in this area, and you could find out how many of them are native and how many of them are non-native, and if there is a higher population of one plant over others. Just by looking at this photograph, you can see that there seems to be a lot of gold over here, so that's possibly a native or non-native plant, and it's possibly an invasive species. So a second factor, again, would be native or non-native species, and you could do that by doing a survey. I'm going to let you come up with the third factor on your own. Again, if you think about the use of this land over time, the third factor should become fairly obvious as far as what could have possibly influenced or changed this area over time. Please stop the video while you're recording your third factor that could have changed the grassland over time, and where you could find evidence to support your claim that this was the factor that has changed this ecosystem over time. Now we're going to look at a series of 4 photographs that show ecological succession over time in an area. And we should define ecological succession. That is a change in the composition in species in an ecosystem over time. So ecological succession, which is one of your vocabulary words, is the change in the composition of species in an area or in an ecosystem over time. So we're going to look at 4 photographs that show this, and you'll be writing down what you see in each of these photographs and how it might be leading to ecological succession. This is the first picture, so please record what observations that you have about what is going on here for ecological succession. Stop the tape and start it when you're ready. This is the second picture. Again, please record what you observe here. This is the picture after the fire. So you can see that there are some burn marks and the ground is devoid of plants. So record what you observe, stop the tape, and start it when you're ready. This is the third picture, and this is taking place several months later after the first two pictures. And it is a close-up of the ground, and you can see here, or hopefully you can see, that there is some burn from the fire, but then we now have new grasses that are beginning to come up. And you can probably see this happening right now in the fires that took place in California, even though they were only a few weeks ago. Due to the rains that have come, there are going to be grasses that will be sprouting up just like this in the next few weeks in that area around Paradise. Go ahead and record what you see, and then start the video when you are ready. This is the last picture in this series, and this has taken place several months after the previous picture. And in this picture you can see that there's still evidence of fire back here in the background, but that the area in the foreground, the grasses have grown and new grasses have changed, have come in. And so this is probably maybe even a year or so after the initial picture, the initial fire was taken. So record what you observe, stop the tape, and start the tape when you are ready. Now we're on to our next question. Why do these pictures show ecological succession over time? So let's go back to our definition of ecological succession. So starting with the first picture, do we see change in the composition of this ecosystem over time? So we went from fire to after the fire. Do you see change in the composition of species? To months or weeks after that fire, do you see change in the composition of species? This is a close-up of the ground. And then the final picture, do you see change in the composition of species in this picture over time? So go ahead and fill in your answer here. Why do these four pictures show ecological succession over time? Start the tape when you are ready. Now we're down to our final question. So we're going to go back to our original photograph of the Round Valley ecosystem, which is a grassland. And if you're just looking at this one photograph right here of this meadow in Round Valley, does this show ecological succession, this one photograph? Please go ahead and record your response in the area that is there, and then you are done with this activity. Have a nice day,